Hello, Vina. Thank you so much for joining me. I am so excited to have you here today to talk about your near-death experience. So, thank you for being willing to do this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. I really do.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here and having this conversation with me. So, let's just jump right in and maybe you could share about your near-death experience, what led into that, and then just jump right into the experience itself.
Okay, okay. For people that don't know, I've kind of been called the no-dose queen because I was sent on a trip to Italy and by my parents when I was late in my teens, and um, I was so excited, and I hadn't slept, a while up to the trip because, you're a teenager, you're going overseas. And so my mom had packed for me some vitamin pills, and I took with me some no-dose or caffeine pills. And once we arrived in Italy, the day was just starting there. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to sleep, and I was really tired, really tired. And so I popped a bunch of the vitamins, and goodness knows how many nodos I took, but it was quite a few. Um, and like I've said, I took so many that they were coming out of my mouth at the water fountain at the airport, and I had to push them back in. But anyway, I did that, and they started probably taking effect almost immediately. And by the time we got our luggage and got onto the bus, um, I was like a nervous wreck. These pills were had taken effect. I felt like it was going to jump out of my skin, and I laid down on. Not, I partially lay down on the bus, um, because I was just feeling so out of sorts, and I started to hear my heart race, and it was racing and racing, and it just was going so fast. It was beating. And I heard it in my ears, which is like frightening in itself because who hears their heartbeat? And then after a while, it just started really slowing down. And it slowed down to the point where it was literally a thump, 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 thump. And the last thump I heard, my heart just completely stopped. I felt I don't know, a quickening in my chest. And as soon as that happened, my spirit just popped right out of my body. So that, in answer to your question, that's how I got I guess the nickname of Nodo's Queen, because my abuse of those Nodo's pills.
Wow.
But yeah, so once it popped out of my chest, um, I was very alive, very vibrant, very aware, more aware than I had ever been of anything. Um, you're just aware of everything around you, but in a multi-layered type of form. Um, you see the physical people. I saw the physical people on the bus. I saw my own body on the bus. Just laying there. I almost actually didn't recognize it because, when you see your body outside of your body, not in a mirror, it's not the same as, you're looking at your flesh here. Um, I looked like a slab of meat, or like a whale almost. Like, and I was only 95 pounds at the time. Um, but it was just a whole different experience of seeing it. But anyway, I remember looking down at my body, and there was hardly energy and any lights coming off of it. Everything else had like energy, different perspectives of light coming from them. Mine didn't. And I didn't realize I was dead, um, because I was so alive and in like a spiritual form. But I knew something wasn't quite right because I'm looking around
Mm.
at the people on the bus, and there's all this energy coming from them, which I didn't know at the time, but it's like your auric field.
Can I
Um,
ask you what that energy looked like? Like, was there different
sure.
colors or
Oh, yes, sure. Absolutely. So, yeah, it's um, all for myself or the other people, you mean?
the other people? Because
Okay.
did you say you didn't see any
No, I
energy
didn't.
off
I hardly,
yourself?
there was just this very faint, scattered field of energy around me, but it was so faint and so dim. Um, and obviously, because my spirit was not inhabiting it.
Right.
So, that's definitely the reason why. But the energy of the other people, some was very animated and very light, and you could see like different energy fragments from some. Some was a very dull energy. Um, I remember there was this one woman. She was sleeping. Um, and she had like a red energy around her, but it was very intense and heavy. And as I look back and think now, I'm wondering what kind of dream she was having because her that energy around her was so intense, and yet she was asleep. She was
Oh,
sitting upright
wow.
but sleep. But that I've thought about that since, and it's kind of fascinating. But anyway, yeah, their energy, it was all different, and it's not only the energy from the people that I saw, but even the stuff on the bus had sort of like an energy. It wasn't the same type of energy that was coming from the actual people. Theirs was more animated, and it changed, and it flowed more. The energy coming from some of the stuff on the bus was more dull, but it was there. There was still an energy field around. Just something simple like the bar that was on the bus. There was a silver bar. There
Mhm.
was actually a dull energy radiating from that bar. Um,
Wow.
I've described that I actually saw an ant on the floor, on this rubber mat on the bus. Even that mat had like a dull type of energy coming from it. The ant had energy. Um, Everything had energy, just in
Amazing.
various different forms. The inanimate stuff was, like I said, a lot duller and a lot thinner, but it still had energy.
Wow. Thank you so much for describing that for me. So, what happened next in your experience?
So next, I was kind of like, now, mind you, I'm seeing all this at one time, and I'm able to comprehend everything I'm seeing and experiencing and feeling. So while I was, conscious of the ant and my body and these people that were talking and this woman, I was also being drawn outside of the bus to these mountains. They were giving off like this other type of energy from them. Even though like they're stationary, they still were giving off like a very strong energy field. And I was cognizant of that, cognizant of the highway that we were traveling on. the people on it, they were driving. Some of them were driving angry. Some of them were just kind of driving um, normally. But there was energy coming from these cars. And it's fascinating because I could tell if someone was going to be in an accident soon because the energy was so frenetic, so frantic, so um, it was shooting out in like pulses,
Mhm.
and you could tell it was very discordant. And these people were driving with like a lot of energy, a lot of anxiety, and my trail of thought just kind of followed that, and I could see that a couple of them were going to be in an accident. Um, but anyway, so I'm processing that and seeing that. And then the bus driver, he's pretty animated and um, he's cursing up a storm. And I was drawn to him. And it was just like his entire inner self just unfolded to me. And I just started seeing a bunch of stuff about him. Um, and I was correct in my initial assessment when I first saw him in that he was a rambunctious type of guy. He was angry, he had a temper, but I also saw how that stuff kind of affected his health. His health wasn't good. I was seeing spots within his not his physical body, but I was seeing spots within his light body or astral body, whatever you want to call it, where there was blocked energy and you could
Mm.
tell that it was sickness in him. And it
Oh.
was in
Mm.
a couple of spots I saw this. Um, and there was like a correlation between his attitude and this sickness. And, that's something I've kind of kept in my mind for all these years, because I saw that direct connection, you know, his meanness and his nastiness, and he was at times cruel. It affected his body, and it it stayed in his body. It didn't flow. So I saw a few other things about him, and then all of a sudden this presence, it was a very gentle but firm presence, just kind of touched my soul. Um, and when I say touched it, I don't mean physically touched it because I wasn't in physical form, but it overlaid my soul. It it put its presence on mine, and it gathered me up, and we went sort of upwards. I remember moving through the bus, and then the next thing I know, we were in this beautiful white realm. And boy, oh boy, I tell you, I there's no words to describe this realm of in the spiritual world. It's just it's a beautiful, soothing, peaceful. You feel like you could just be in this realm forever, yet you're acutely aware of the nowness of it,
Mm.
the 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 vibrancy of it. It's a stillness, yet it's an energetic realm of love.
Mm.
Sorry, I'm kind of feeling it. I'm seeing it.
Oh, it sounds like maybe it's hard to describe. Was
It's
it maybe
very
like
hard to describe.
outside of time?
Oh, I felt no sense of, I felt every moment was a now moment. I didn't even, I had no thoughts of me being in Italy. I mean, part of me in the way, way back of my consciousness knew I was in Italy, but at the same time, it was so unimportant and so it didn't even matter. I was home. I was literally home. I had been in this white realm before, and it it was home to me. And in this realm, there's so much streams of consciousness of different parts of the spiritual world. You're seeing um, creation, but you're seeing you. I was seeing um, my soul. I was not my soul at that point. I understood and saw that my soul always resided in this spiritual world, in this wonderful heavenly place. Um, and that this Vina that was experiencing this beautiful realm was just an offshoot of that soul, and one tiny bit of it. And I connected with my soul in this realm. And I got to tell you, that connection has stayed with me all these years. I could never let it go. It was a connection to my soul, but in that connection, I was connected to everything, every aspect of the spiritual world, every aspect of love, every aspect of creation. We when they say we are one, it's so true. We are, it's one, but it's all.
Wow. Are you able to describe what it felt like to be connected to your soul?
Yeah, so it was like meeting a beloved relative that you just love so much and you got along with so well, and they were totally um in love with you as you were with them. um and I use the word click because that's really the only way I can describe it. But connecting with my soul, it I clicked with that highest aspect of my being. And I knew that was me. That was me. But not only was it me, it was everything. It was just everything. Like it was you, Melissa. um, it was every person that ever lived, and yet it was me, and it was so individualized me, yet it was part of everything. um it was like the best homecoming you could ever have, except it's with yourself.
Mm.
And it's a beautiful, such a beautiful experience. And connecting with my soul, I'm like that. If I had been an evil person, or a bad person, or whatever before that, it's impossible to be like that afterwards. After you connect with that highest aspect of yourself, which resides in a zone of pure love, you can never, ever, evil cannot reside here. It just can't.
Mm. So would you say there's no evil in our soul? And if
No.
so, what is the evil that we experience here? Where does it come from?
Well, the evil, there is absolutely no evil in our soul. Like I said, our soul is connected to the sphere of love, and it can never be polluted or compromised or controlled ever. However, um, in our existence here, and even those in other worlds, um, they can shut down those impulses from the soul, from those highest impulses. You can ignore them, you can shut them down. Um, and once that happens, it's like a part of your subconscious sort of vacates. It goes into a hibernation mode. And once that happens, you can do almost anything. But that's in this this existence or another physical type existence. It can't happen in the spiritual realm because it's love is not duplicit. There is no opposition in the spiritual world. So it's all good, all love. But down here and in these type levels, yes, you can ignore those good impulses and you can succumb to evil. And many do. Sadly, many do. And it's a long, once you do, it's a very long trek back to connect with your soul. It's a very long trek.
So a soul that succumbs to evil,
Well, not a
what
soul, but
or
right.
yes, when we if somebody were to succumb to evil here in this realm, what would that person need to do to reconnect with their soul?
Well, the desire is the first thing. I mean, they have to want um, that reconnection back. And typically, and this is something, this whole process of evil and why it existed. Um, and I have put this in the book, but I saw this not in my near death experience, but in my visit to the void. Um, and and how that happens, that whole process. And once they do succumb and they have to get so exhausted of the evil, and only then do they start to want different. And that desire starts building in them for good. And it is a long trek. It's not, just, okay, you're good now. No, that's not the case. um, they have to kind of feel everything and go through everything that they did regarding evil and their evil deeds and their evil actions to the point where they're just soul their soul is tired of it, their spirit is tired of it, and they don't want it anymore. And then they can begin to reconnect. But it's a process. And there are beings in the spiritual world that do help those type of beings, but they have to meet them definitely halfway.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that eventually all of us will return to the soul, return to our souls?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, we're always connected in a sense to our souls. Absolutely. I mean, and you can connect. I mean, here, you know, it's not like it's out of reach or anything. That love will connect you to your soul, and it's almost like a I wish I had sort of like this straw, you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, that desire, that love that's within you. It may start off really, small, but it eventually that channel gets bigger and bigger. The more love we entertain, the more we live by that love, it just gets bigger, connecting to our soul. So, in answer to your question, we're never really separated from it, but um, we can't always feel it or can't
Right.
always feel that connection.
Mm. Well, I have one more question about this topic and then we'll
Okay.
move on.
Okay.
But I was wondering if you were shown a reason for why we undergo this experience of feeling disconnected from our soul and succumbing to evil or succumbing to this experience of separation. Is there a reason for why that happens?
Um, yeah, some of it is like karmic, um, from things we've done to ourselves or others. Some of it is I like to say to stretch those soul muscles, those spirit
Mm,
muscles. Um, Sort of like, in other words, I saw myself at some point residing in the spiritual world for what could be considered a long time here. And at some point, you don't have the same type of opportunities in the spiritual world as you do here because there's no negativity there. So at some point, I consciously made that decision to come here, and kind of put into practice what I knew to be the reality of real existence. And so for some of us, that's the reason too. And like I said, some of it's karmic. Um, but there's an infinite amount of reasons why people choose to come.
mm,
Some people just come just simply to help others, period.
mhm,
you know like people like you, for instance, that are so generous in putting this information out that enlightens people and helps them. That's like an agenda, a very positive type of
mm,
agenda. You know what I mean?
mhm,
And there's not many of you, but there's a few of you, and you're doing it. That in itself is like a reason to come.
mm. That's
You know what I mean?
beautiful. Yeah.
But
And
seriously, like, your sole purpose here may be just to keep getting the word out
mm,
and to enlighten,
mm,
so that's why, you thank me in the beginning, but it's actually, we should be kind of thanking you, type
mm.
thing.
Well, I appreciate that. And also, you're the one that had the experience, so maybe that's part of your purpose.
Oh,
Were you
sure.
shown your purpose?
Sure.
Were you
Part,
sh were you shown your
yes.
purpose?
Yes, I was, and it's extremely personal. um
Mm,
but yes, I was, to a point, I was shown it.
mm.
And I'm still a work in progress. But don't count me out. I'm
Well, we
trying.
can all say that, I think.
Yeah, definitely a work in progress. And it's funny because someone said, well, to me, boy, I hope this is my last time here. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm pretty sure it's not going to be my last time. I'll be back. But, either here or somewhere else, just as uh, rough.
I know it's funny because people say that a lot. This is my last time. I'm never coming back here. But if I'm being honest, I'm thinking, no, my entire life has been about facing challenge after challenge and growing through it. And I'm pretty sure if I need to come back, I'm gonna be coming back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And remember, when you're over on the other side planning your life, which is my guide did show me, and I'm sorry, I didn't even mention my guide earlier, but my guide did show me the process of incarnating. And at the very beginning, it's us making that decision. We know the pitfalls, of coming to a place like Earth. And there's other existences we can go to that are just as rough. Some are rougher, a lot are much easier, but we know the pitfalls. And so the fact that we chose to come is a very courageous thing,
Mm.
very courageous on our part. So just by being here, we should be like, go, girl,
Yes, yes.
go.
So, Vina, you're in this white realm that feels
Yes.
like home, and you've been there before. And I heard in another interview that you said you were given answers in that realm. Do you remember what any of those things were that you were shown?
Oh, sure. I mean, there was quite a few, like I said about agenda, um, religion, um, and I also, it's funny because I also saw about religion during my visit through the void. But my guide also um, had told me that you know, aliens are basically, but they're such a high level type of alien, but they're basically in charge of Earth, and they're running things. Um, and back then, and even now to some degree, it's like, you know, society's rule is to pretend that either they don't exist or, yeah, maybe there's a ship here or there. But aliens have such an integral part in our life here. Um, so that was, one of the major things they showed me. They did talk about autism. My guy did, um, and showed me some things. And I don't want to just talk about it now, only because I don't want to split up the information into just a little bit here and a little bit
Mm,
there. It's just not fair, and I just don't want to say autism like it's a bad thing, because it's so
right,
not a bad thing.
right. I
That was
understand.
something I was shown. It's just not a bad thing at all. As a matter of fact, those with especially severe autism are more in touch to the other realms than we are, generally.
Mm,
Um, Angels, I did learn that angels never incarnate, and I was very fortunate to view what my guide said was the angelic realm. Although I couldn't interact with those, they're a whole other type of being. Um,
mm,
they're just so they're much different. They're they stay on that realm. We call it miracles, but it's really not miracles. It's just them transcending space, time, dimensions, um, because they never incarnate ever. And that was such a beautiful um, sight to behold, their realm, their angelic realm. Um, so yes, it my guide showed me a lot, and I didn't even explain, in the white realm. Um, at some point, my guide explained that they were my guide, and I was a teenager. Who knows about guides? I sure didn't. And I asked, "What is a guide?" And they told me that they would tell me in due time, and I would understand. But the beauty of my guide was that they were they were very non-judgmental towards me, very loving, and did not force me to do anything. There was a period of time, not time, but there was a period during this near-death experience where they paused and allowed me to sort of scan them. And it felt right with my soul. They felt right with my soul. And then I was able to go with them and trust them and be with them. So
Wow.
yeah, I just wanted to add that. But they allowed that. Like and nothing was forced on me. Nothing, absolutely. And it's some people say, oh, they're, a demon or not. There's no way my guy could have ever been anything close to a demon because of the love and the care and the ultra kindness they showed me, and wisdom, the wisdom.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because I do get comments like that a lot about people who are questioning the the authenticity of the guides and the beings that appear to people in their near-death experiences and saying, oh, maybe it's some kind of a trap, maybe they're deceiving you. And to somebody who's had an experience like you and has experienced that, it's like you can speak to that from a whole different level.
Well, first of all, it being in that white realm of pure love, there's no way, and the purity of that realm, absolutely pure. There's no way you could ever, there's no tricking in there. You cannot be tricked because, like I said, you are connected to your soul, and your soul can never be tricked. It can never be controlled. It can never be manipulated, ever, ever. And there is no way that a being could have tricked me in that being in that white realm of pure love. And anyone who has ever experienced that type of love, you realize and know there's no type of evil entity or demon that could ever even reside there. They
Mm,
just it just can't exist there.
mm.
Period. It just can't. So so that's my answer when people say that. Um and like I said, when your soul knows always.
Well, thank you for explaining that for us. And so, what happened next after? And I know it was outside of time, but it's hard to talk about it without using time words. So, you're in the white realm, and then did something happen after that?
Yes. Actually, the very first thing that happened was my after I just soaked in and didn't want to leave this realm, um, my guide said that we were going to travel, and we were off, and we ended up out in space. We went through some type of energy portal, not a tunnel, but like a portal that was instantaneous, but it we went from that white realm to actual space, out in space. And I tell you, um, it's just mind blowing. And even as a spiritual type of form, I was still blown away because space is just, and not only is it just everywhere and it just goes forever, but the view that I saw was there's different dimensions in space. And so I'm seeing traffic that's traveling uh but not 3D traffic. I'm seeing energy going by, streams of energy. There's just so much out there. There's souls out there that are traveling. And we were orbs. My guide had, when it gathered me up, it made me into an orb also. I mean, at all points, at all times, I was pure consciousness. But during like the travel and the being out in space, we were orbs of light. Of course, my guides was much bigger and much more intense and just beautiful. Um, but anyway, I saw other orbs out there. Um, and, some of them were swiftly traveling, some of them were just kind of just going, and some of them were traveling together and they would merge while they were out in space and then come apart. It's so fascinating. And I saw crafts, different alien type crafts. I saw containers out there. And some of those containers had these orbs in them, like traffic in them. I don't know. I don't know. Um, but it's just fascinating. And space is just overwhelming. Like, I don't know how astronauts do it. Um, they deserve every medal that you can give them because it's so overwhelming. Um, but anyway, and after I absorbed all this activity out there, um, my guide took us to another section of space, and I saw this alien. I can't call it it wasn't a sphere. It was this craft, and it was just constantly changing, and it was like a crystalline, and at certain points, no matter how it shifted, it would go invisible, and then you'd see it again, and it changed, and the beings that were part of this craft could move like this craft. Um, they were also like a biocrystalline type of material. And they would merge into this craft and then come out at another section of it. Um, and they were I never knew how many of these beings there were because, like I said, they were either absorbed in this craft or separating from it, or you just never knew. And it was fascinating to me now, but back then I couldn't relate to them because they had vertical, like their whole face was two vertical eyes. That was it.
Mm.
And, it was just too much for me. So I wasn't that interested in seeing them, sadly. Um, and I wish I could get the experience again. But those beings provided like security to that section of space. And if you think about it, I guess it's a brilliant thing because they could literally become invisible and then, appear, at will. So um at least that's what my guide told me, that they provided like security. But anyway, I was very nonplussed about seeing them. And like I said, I regret it to this day. And I'm really sorry. Um, very sorry. But the ignorance of youth, right? But then we were taken to another part of space. And when I asked my guide, like I tried to find, because, in space, there's no north, south, east, or west or anything. So when I tried to, and I had no knowledge of astronomy, still basically don't. But when I tried to ask my guide, like, where is this? And they gave me this convoluted um, explanation about if you project all the way out from the southern equator during the summer from Earth, blah blah blah, you'll eventually reach it. Okay, whatever that means. But but anyway, we arrived at this world made up of just water. I mean, there was just tiny little land dots, but no major land masses. But the thing about this world was it was um, a blue sun that was just beautiful and so soothing and just radiating such beauty. But these three moons, they were so close to the planet. I I wish I could make people understand how close they were. Um, and they were just hung there, um, very close to the planet. But anyway, my guide eventually took us underwater and I saw mer people. And someone wrote a comment, why can't I say, why won't I say mermaid? Well, I can't say mermaid because mermaid, if I'm correct, is female. Um, these creatures, some were male, some were female, some I have no clue what they were. I don't even think they had a specific sex. So that's why I call them mer people.
Mhm.
But they were um, they were extremely intelligent mer people, life forms. Some of them look like our mermaids, but most didn't. Like the
Mm.
mermaids we know of, most didn't. Some had octopus type legs, all maybe six or seven different appendages off of their torso. Some of them had gills coming out from their chest. Others had them from their face. Um, they were a ferocious looking creatures,
Mm.
not the gentle Ariel mermaid that we know about.
Mhm.
And they were highly intelligent and they definitely seemed to be running, um, the underground, but there were so many other intelligent species. As a matter of fact, most of the species that I saw underwater had a high intelligence, not necessarily a human type of intelligence, but they were highly intelligent. Um, and they're not dumbed down type of beings. They weren't dumbed downs. And my guy did tell me um, that a lot of our aquatic life here was seeded from this world. And I believe it
Wow.
because I saw so many creatures. Um, and for instance, the manatee creature, I'd never seen a manatee, never knew what one looked like. I was born in Philadelphia, so you know, but I saw these manatees under the water and they were extremely intelligent and they were conversing with these mer people. And so fast forward, I get back to the States after being overseas. I was in the military and my last duty station was in Florida and a friend invites me over to their home and they have a boat and they're on the dock and this huge creature swims up to us and it's a freaking manatee. And that was my first time ever seeing or hearing of a manatee. And I just broke down in tears because it was like a confirmation of what I saw on this other world. It was that moment. It stayed with me for all these years. But anyway, this world was just, it was amazing. It was very amazing. There was these structures underneath the world and they were bioluminescent structures and they were lit up like the the sun, the color of the sun.
Mm.
Um, and I remember thinking at the time, how was this done? Especially being underwater. But I'm sorry, I feel like I'm just going over.
No, I'm enjoying it. I've spoken to a couple other people who have experienced a water world like you're describing. I seem to hear about it more and more often now, but you've given the most detail that I've ever heard.
Oh, there was so many different creatures. There were plants that literally moved like intelligent entities, like what we would say was like algae. These were like algae creatures, but they're sentient. They're intelligent. And I remember at one point, the mer people were just kind of, my guide opened its orb up some kind of way, and we became visible. And I don't know how the mer people saw us, like if they saw us in like some type of form or as the orb or what, but it was clear we were visible to them. And they started talking about us. And I'm watching them speak to these creatures, and it's like they were talking to fish. They were talking to these algae things, and there was understanding going back and forth. Like you could tell they understood each other,
Wow.
gossiping about us.
Wow.
um, and and then a couple of them would move around, and they moved around. Um, you know, whatever form we appeared to them, they went all around, a couple of them, and then they would talk, converse with each other. Um, and some of the um, I remember seeing these pulses going out, and I can understand now because of that how dolphins um, can communicate,
Mhm.
because these pulses were measured and they were perfect, and they I'm not a scientist, so forgive me, but I could see like these waves of energy going out, and how they were structured, and how these creatures could understand it. And so I because of that I have an understanding of like dolphins and whales and how they communicate, and it's a very soothing sound for me.
Well, I just want to take a minute to point out your painting behind you where you painted the water world with the sun, the
Yes,
blue sun. And then you have
yes.
another painting behind you, and you said that
Yes.
was a nebula. Did you see that when you were out in space, or have we not gotten to that yet?
Yes, I missed over that one. That was when we initially came out in space, and I saw this what I kind of thought was a nebula. Um and mind you, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even really know what a nebula was back then. I didn't. But I saw this humongous light thing, made up of different lights, and it was moving, like purposely moving. And then it would gather itself up into this form, not really a human form, but as much of this as could look like some type of form. And you could tell it was like a being. And then it would scatter itself back down and move on. And it did this, and it's fascinating. And yeah, so that's definitely what I saw out in space.
Wow.
Both of them.
I 100% believe you because I've heard from multiple different sources. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Law of One. It's a channeled spiritual text that gets into the metaphysics of how the universe was created and how everything works. And it does talk about how planets and stars and even galaxies are actually sentient beings, like they actually have a consciousness and they're involved in the creation that goes on in their solar systems.
I completely 100% can buy that
Mm.
completely. There are beings we have no idea how to classify them that exist. A few I got a sense of in the white realm. Um, so yes, I totally buy into that
Mm.
completely.
So, what happened after you visited the water world?
So after a while, you know, probably my guy was getting jealous of all the attention we were getting. No, just kidding. Just kidding. No, at some point, my guy communicated with one of the mer people, but through a pulse of light. And it was basically like a thank you and a goodbye type of thing. And then we went back. We left right from the water this time, and went back through that portal, that dimensional portal, and we were back in the white realm. And that's kind of really where like a lot of the teaching and the stuff that my guide showed me happened. Um, and I at some point I asked like kind of like what is like why am I going through this? Like why am I, why is this happening? And my guy said, I would understand in the short and the long term. And they were so right. Like I get it. I get why I saw all that I had to see. It wasn't just, hey, let's go here, let's go there. There was deep wisdom and purpose behind all that I saw and all that I was taught and shown. Um, and love, um, such love towards me. I did have a visit many years later from my guide. It was extremely brief. And I describe it in the book, but basically, they just infused everything that I went through in the near death experience, like back into my soul, back into my spirit. But when they did that, it was like everything fell into place. And I just could understand the purpose and the reason and why I'd had it.
Mm. Well, Vina, thank you so much for sharing this experience with us today. I do have one final question for you. I heard in another interview that you heard some final words before coming
Oh,
back.
yes, yes. I asked, because after that experience with in the white realm, and I was so infused with that love. And so naturally my mind went to how should I live? Like, and I don't know, I guess a part of me thought, just be like a saint, and who knows like what I was thinking at that time, but it was so not that. My guides main one of the main things they told me was to be kind above all else. Be
Mm,
kind. And that to enjoy this life. It's not, take it seriously enough, but enjoy it. That was so important. And I get it now. Like, I get it. When you enjoy life, you have that positive attitude, and that positive attitude keeps you more connected to that spiritual realm than you can imagine. It just keeps you so much more connected. So that was brilliant advice. And to never let hate dwell in my heart ever, because that just blocks, your those higher impulses from your soul. It just blocks it. So I've really tried hard to live as best I could from that advice, and it has served me so well. It
Mm.
sounds simple, but it's brilliant. It's brilliant,
Mm.
and I think, one of the main things coming through all of that and the visit through the void and the visit again from my guide is the fact that um, love is the bottom line to everything. And it's so simple, yet we overlook it. That energy of love is can do everything. Um, but it's over simple, so we think it should be more complicated than that.
Right, exactly. Well, Vina, I'd like to mention your book. You've written a book called My Near-Death Experience from A to Z, which
Yes.
I'll have linked in the description. And is there anything else that you'd like to share about where the viewers can find you?
I do have a YouTube channel, and it's at my NDE from A to Z. And I've tried to do Q&A sessions. There's quite a few, just from questions people have had from the book or just in general. I've tried to answer them. And I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate you and people like you. It's so important. Really is important. And it takes a lot of courage to do what you do.
Well,
You
it
know,
takes a lot of courage to speak up about your experience.
I will agree.
Yes. So thank you for having this conversation and being willing to put yourself out there. I could listen to you talk for so much longer, and I really appreciate you taking the time to go into the details of the different things that you experienced.
Oh, thank you, Melissa. And you're really such a pleasant, lovely person, really. Thank you.